I helped everyone in my family get remote jobs. And I mean everyone from my brother who is younger than me to my mom, and also a lot of friends that I have who wanted to work remotely and they were like, "Hey, do you think you can help me?" Of course I can. Because if you want a remote job, I'm pretty certain that you can do it. It doesn't matter where you're from or where you live, how old are you, or what's your background, or what kind of experience you have, or if you have zero remote work experience, you can always land a remote job if you have some sort of guidance and if you're not making the mistakes that everyone makes and that make them think that they cannot land remote jobs, or that maybe remote work is not for them because they cannot seem to find a remote job, and maybe they or maybe you have been trying for like 6 months, 1 year, and you still don't see results, and you don't get callbacks and you don't get interviews, and maybe you're starting to think that either you are the problem or that the job market is not doing well and it's impossible to find a remote job nowadays, or that there are no good remote jobs out there, that they don't pay well, that it's not going to be possible to find them. All of those things are myths. And if you believe them, I am here to show you the different reasons why right now is actually a great time to get a remote job, and how you can do it even if you are 20 or 60, or it doesn't matter where you're from, because at this point, I've also helped people from every single continent. So I know that you can get remote jobs everywhere. All right. So the first person I ever helped get a remote job, even before I started helping all of you and I started creating content about remote work, was my brother back in 2019. Okay. I was working remotely since 2015. I had a full-time remote job and I used to work in human resources. I was hiring and recruiting candidates all remotely. So I was doing remote interviews and looking at a lot of resumes, which is kind of how I started seeing what mistakes people were making, what works, what doesn't. And that is also how I started seeing that I could help other people not make those mistakes so they could get hired. And this was back in 2019, all right? So back then, there weren't as many remote jobs, and I was still able to help people find remote jobs. So now it's even easier because now there are so many companies that are fully remote, or small entrepreneurs, or small businesses, or people who create content. All of those people need a virtual assistant, an accountant, and I mean, the fully remote companies, they need everyone. If they are fully remote, that means they are hiring in every department. So everyone from customer service to HR to accounting to legal to the people who create the content and do the social media, of course, people in tech, people in everything, all the departments, they all work remotely. The company is fully remote. So that means that there are more opportunities for everyone. Okay. So whatever you do right now, you can probably do remotely. You don't have to go ahead and learn a new skill. No, because that's a big mistake I see people making. They think that in order to get a remote job, they cannot do whatever they're doing now, that they have to learn like coding or how to build websites or how to do something else and then start looking for remote jobs. But you just end up wasting time, because you can actually get remote jobs with the skills you already have. You just have to learn maybe the tools to do your same job, but remotely. So for example, when I started working remotely, I was hiring candidates, interviewing candidates. This was back in 2015. I wasn't even familiar with Zoom. There was no Zoom, or maybe there was, but people weren't using it a lot back then. So I had to do interviews, right? And I didn't have to learn something new. I was doing hiring and recruiting before in person. And when I went remote, I just started doing the same thing, but remotely. So I just had to learn and figure out what tools I was going to use. So back then I started using Skype and that's how I started interviewing people. So right now, if you want to work remotely and you work in the legal department and you have to sign contracts and maybe do some virtual workshops to train staff in like how they deal with certain negotiations or things like that, then you have to figure out software that is going to help you with with like signing contracts, and maybe like virtual workshop software, or just how to use maybe Zoom as a for like a conference type of thing. So that's the thing. You don't have to learn new things. You just have to learn how to do them remotely, okay? Because there are remote companies that are fully remote. So they're hiring in different departments, and they might be hiring in whatever department you work for. Of course, there's going to be exceptions. Like, okay, if you are a makeup artist, then of course, you cannot get a remote job as a makeup artist working for a company. That might be a little bit harder to find. Impossible? Never, because there might be a makeup company that needs someone who creates content, and then you can create content about makeup. Or maybe they need someone to create, I don't know, something related to makeup. I use the worst example because I don't wear a lot of makeup. But yeah, for example, if you are a chef or you cook and you want to get a remote job, it might be a little bit harder, but you could still work around it and maybe try to find restaurants that need people who create menus. Or you could start something yourself if you don't want to get a remote job, and then you can create, you can train other cooks and chefs on how to become more efficient. And then you can do this like, I don't know, different types of trainings or one-on-one pick my brain sessions, video calls. If we get creative, a lot of things can be done remotely. The person I hired to help me decorate my home, she is an architect slash like interior designer, and she helped me 95% of the time remotely. So she designed everything and all of that, and she just came like one time. So those are just random examples of different things that might be not as common to do remotely, but if you are creative, you can find a way. So the first person I helped was my brother, after I myself had been working remotely for about four years at that point. He was working at a call center, and he was maybe like 19 at the time. And I was like, hey, you have customer service experience with your call center experience, and your English is great, your Spanish is great, so 2 languages, and don't you want to work remotely? Look at all the perks. And he was like, I don't get it. I'm fine with my call center job. And I'm like, no, you're not. So it's funny because back then people were not familiar with remote jobs. So they were like, does that mean that it's going to be unstable? Or that, there's a big misconception that all remote jobs are like freelance, and you're going to have to like search for clients all the time, and it's not going to be like a steady income. But there are a lot of remote jobs that are full-time, and they're going to hire you like a regular job would, just remotely. So I was like, look, this is how it works. These are the perks. Okay. It was, again, 2019. COVID was not a thing yet. So people were still like, they didn't have to work remotely because of something like a pandemic. So once he started understanding the perks, and I explained to him, hey, you can get a full-time remote job, or they pay well. They actually offer perks and benefits. You can work from anywhere. He was like, okay, I'll try it. So the first thing we did was identify the skills he already had. Of course, he had a lot of customer service skills and stuff like that could be translated into remote work, right? So first things first, you identify the skills that you already have. You don't have to learn new ones. And then you have to make a resume highlighting those skills. If you already have experience, like if you work remotely during the pandemic, you can include that as a remote work experience in your resume, and you're already going to have a leg up. You're going to be better than the competition already if you worked remotely during the pandemic, or if you have any sort of personal project or hobby that you've done online. So for example, if you create videos on YouTube for fun, even if it's for yourself, it doesn't have to be like an actual professional setting, a job that you were hired for. If you have the skills and you know tools to do different things you can still mention those skills and those tools, even if you cannot mention an actual job title as remote work experience. You can mention the other things. So it's about being creative and really thinking all the things that you've done and that you do, even if it's not actual work. It could be also education. If you went to school online, then you learned a bunch of tools and you know a lot of skills that are used in remote work environments, because it's kind of like the same. So you just have to find a way to include that in your resume, and that way you make your resume remotified. That's how I like to call it. I created a formula called remotify your resume, which basically means making a resume specifically for a remote job, so that when you're applying for a remote job, you actually stand out, because the employer is going to be like, oh, okay, they already sort of know different things as they relate to remote work. So I'm not going to have to train them on the basics. I'm not going to have to train them on like, okay, so this is how we use Slack to communicate as a team. No, if you already know those sorts of things, even if you just learn them on your own, so that's something that you could be doing in your free time, then you can add that to your resume so that it seems that like you're more qualified, even if you don't have actual remote work experience. Okay. So that is one hack, right? That is one way in which you can like overcome a lack of experience if you don't have actual remote work experience. And that is what worked with my brother and with a lot of the people I help. I always tell them this. You don't have to have remote work experience to get hired for your first remote job. I actually have a course and it's called Land Your First Remote Job. And the reason why I call it that is because you can get a remote job even without remote work experience. You land your first remote job because I teach you how to get the first one, and you get your first one. And guess what? You didn't need to have a previous remote job before that one. It's the first one. Okay. So that's what I helped my brother do. He got his first remote job within like 3 months, working for a company. And he would do like kind of like virtual assistant. He would book clients. He would like schedule appointments. He eventually also became like the right hand person of I don't know if it was like the director of operations or something of the company. So a lot of customer service and a lot of like virtual assistant, kind of like executive assistant kinds of things. And this was when he was 19. So no previous remote work experience. And now there are even more remote jobs like that, because now even more people realize that they can have someone that can help them out with a lot of things. So you just have to know where to find the remote jobs. That's something else that I teach and I help people realize. There are a lot of good remote jobs out there. They pay well, they offer benefits and perks. You just have to know where to find them, okay? So that is how I helped my brother, the first person ever that I helped get a remote job. Just a matter of identifying the skills you already have, remotifying your resume, and then learning where to find the legit remote jobs. And then, of course, applying consistently, because I see a lot of people and they're like, oh, I want a remote job. And I'm like, okay, let's apply. Let's do steps 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you have to apply. And they're like, oh yeah, I applied to 3 jobs and nothing. 3 jobs, that's not going to cut it. You're going to have to apply to a lot of remote jobs at first to get your first opportunity. So if you're not willing to do that, and if you're not willing to put in the work, this is going to be a struggle. But if you are, you can get a remote job within like 3 months. Okay. So I actually have a 3-month plan for you laid out, like with what you have to do week by week. I'll put the link in the description box. So you can just follow that plan. And in 3 months, you can be getting your offers for your first remote job, because it's possible. I've been helping people since 2019, and they all, on average, get remote jobs within like 3 months if they follow the steps and if they apply consistently for remote jobs. So my brother was the first one. Then I started helping people because I was already creating content back then. So I started with like virtual workshops. Then I had my course. Then I've had a bunch of other resources. I have a Substack library with a bunch of different articles on how to do different things, like guides, like that 3-month plan, for example. And yeah, the good thing is that I am still helping people go remote. It's been like 7 years now, and there are still so many opportunities. I still see people get remote jobs all the time. So it was really rewarding when I started seeing a bunch of people tell me, like, hey, you changed my life. Wow, now I have a better salary. Now I have these benefits. Now I could move to whatever country. I have better mental health. So many perks that come with remote job that are not just the usual ones that people think of. Like the first one is like, okay, now you're able to travel, but there are also a lot of other perks that you start taking advantage of once you start working remotely. So then, like, my brother's girlfriend, she also started working remotely with following the same steps. Then I also helped a lot of my friends. I mean, not everyone wants to work remotely. Some people have their jobs, but all the ones that came to me and they were like, okay, I need your help because I kind of want that flexibility and freedom. They all followed the same exact steps. And again, different ages, different career levels, different backgrounds. It's possible for everyone because there are so many opportunities out there. And the person I helped most recently was my mom. And a lot of people are like, I think I cannot get a remote job because I'm past the age limit. What age limit? There's no such thing as an age limit for remote work. My mom got her first remote job at 62. And again, if you can show that you are going to be able to do the work and work remotely and learn fast, and if we identify the skills that you already have, and then maybe you learn some tools, I explain more in a video that I made specifically about how I help my mom. So you can go ahead and watch that after this one so that you can see what to do if maybe you feel like you lack a little bit of experience. You can see what we did with her. And yeah, then I continued to help people. And again, different ages, different continents, different countries, different backgrounds, all of it. So if you think that you cannot get a remote job for whatever reason, I'm here to tell you that once you figure out the remote job search, you're going to be getting like your first offers within 3 months. You just have to follow a plan and stop making the common mistakes that everyone's making that is costing them to actually get remote jobs and get callbacks and interviews. First, that's the first step. And they're just wasting time because they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing. So that's what I help you do. And again, I am Andrea Valeria. I help people. I help people get remote jobs, and I've been doing that since 2019. So it's pretty cool for me because it's really rewarding when I get a message like, "This changed my life. I didn't know a remote job was everything I needed all this time." So that's what I'm here to help you with. You can go ahead and watch my mom's video now if you're still curious about how this all works and how you can do it too. Okay, ciao.